What if everything you thought you knew about money just got flipped upside down by one quiet statement from the man running Ripple? Listen carefully. Right now, while most people are still arguing about whether XRP will ever hit $5, the CEO of Ripple just dropped a projection that points straight toward $10 trillion in value, and a price tag near $178 per coin. This isn't some random YouTuber hyping numbers. This comes straight from the top, and the timing couldn't be more dangerous, because while the crypto world is distracted by Bitcoin's next move, a silent shift in global finance is already happening behind the scenes, one that could make early XRP holders extremely wealthy or leave the rest watching from the sidelines. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. The CEO didn't say this in some vague interview. He said it in a context that ties directly into how the world actually moves money. And once you see the math, it stops sounding like a dream and starts sounding like an inevitable outcome. Yet not everyone believes it. Critics are already sharpening their knives, calling it impossible, calling it hype. So who's right? And more importantly, what does this actually mean for you if you hold even a small bag of XRP right now? The answer might shock you, because this isn't just about price. It's about a complete redesign of how trillions flow across borders every single day. And Ripple's CEO just put a number on the table that changes the entire game. But before we get to the exact projection and how $178 becomes realistic, there's something he revealed that most headlines completely missed. Let's go straight to the source. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse didn't whisper this in some backroom podcast. He laid it out in public remarks that tied XRP directly to the massive scale of global payments. He pointed to a market where trillions already move every single day, and he made it clear the infrastructure Ripple built is positioned to capture a meaningful slice of that flow. But here's where the real tension kicks in. Garlinghouse never stood up and shouted $10 trillion valuation or 178 per XRP. What he actually described was the opportunity size. The total addressable market that could run through systems like Ripple's on-demand liquidity. Critics jumped on that immediately. They called it classic CEO optimism, the kind every executive uses to pump their own stock. Supporters, however, saw something different, a quiet acknowledgement that the old rails of international finance are cracking and something faster, cheaper, and more transparent is ready to take over. The numbers he referenced weren't pulled from thin air. Cross-border payments already exceed $150 trillion annually, and analysts who follow Ripple closely have run the math on what even a modest percentage captured by XRP could mean for demand. That's when the projection starts to feel less like fantasy, yet the gap between opportunity and actual price action is exactly what keeps most investors on the fence. Because if the CEO's vision is right, the utility layer alone could drive sustained buying pressure most coins never see. Still, plenty of voices in the space remain unconvinced. They argue regulation, competition from stablecoins, and plain old market cycles will keep XRP capped far below triple digits. So, who's actually closer to the truth? Garlinghouse gave us the framework. The real question is whether the world is ready to use it at the scale he described, and that answer is already unfolding in real time. But here's where the math stops being abstract and starts hitting you in the chest. The global cross-border payments market already moves more than $150 trillion every single year. Ripple's on-demand liquidity system is built to slice straight through that flow, replacing slow correspondent banks with instant settlement using XRP as the bridge asset. Even a conservative single-digit percentage of that market routing through XRP creates demand on a scale most coins can never touch. That's exactly how analysts arrive at the $10 trillion projection. They run the velocity numbers, the circulating supply around 56 billion tokens, and the burn mechanism that tightens supply over time. The result lands near $178 per XRP if adoption hits the levels Garlinghouse described. It sounds outrageous until you compare it to what happened when Swift dominated the same space decades ago. Or look at how Bitcoin's market cap exploded once institutions treated it as digital gold. XRP's edge is different. It's not a store of value play. It's a utility asset with real-world transaction volume baked in. Yet the critics still line up. They point to past price action, regulatory shadows, and the fact that utility tokens rarely moon like pure speculation plays. So the real tension isn't whether the math works on paper, it's whether the world actually flips the switch and lets Ripple's rails carry that volume. And the early signals suggest the switch is already moving. Those early signals aren't hidden in some white paper. They're playing out in courtrooms, boardrooms, and actual payment corridors right now. Ripple has quietly stacked regulatory wins that most investors still underestimate. The long-running SEC battle ended with a clear path forward, removing the biggest cloud that kept institutions at arm's length. But the real momentum is coming from partnerships that are already live. Major banks and payment providers across Asia, Europe, and Latin America are testing and scaling on-demand liquidity corridors, moving real money at real speed. Each new connection adds another layer of actual demand for XRP. And then there's the institutional door swinging wide open. Whispers of XRP ETF filings have grown louder, and several large funds have started building positions that go far beyond speculation. Critics love to dismiss this as just another hype cycle. They point to past regulatory scares, competition from stablecoins like USDT, and the brutal volatility that has crushed XRP before. They argue that even with all the infrastructure, governments and big banks will never fully hand over control of trillion-dollar flows to a crypto bridge. Yet the numbers don't lie. Transaction volume through RippleNet has been climbing steadily, and the burn rate on XRP is quietly removing supply with every cross-border move. The tension is real. Every new partnership accelerates the vision, while every regulatory twist or market crash could slam the brakes. So the question hanging over all of this is simple. What happens when the next major catalyst hits and the world suddenly realizes the rails are already built? But this isn't just numbers on a screen or another bull run fantasy. It's the kind of shift that quietly rewrites the lives of people who position themselves early. Think about the small group of holders who bought XRP years ago when the world laughed at Ripple's vision. They watched friends cash out at $2, calling them crazy for holding through the lawsuits and the endless sideways price action. Now those same believers are staring at a future where even modest stacks could change everything. Mortgages paid off, businesses launched, retirement secured without ever touching another 9-to-5. The emotional weight of that possibility hits hard. Yet for every winner who stayed the course, there are thousands who sold too soon or never bought at all, now scrolling through forums filled with regret. The fear of missing out isn't hype here. It's the quiet ache of watching a once-in-a-generation opportunity slip away while life keeps moving forward. Still, the balanced truth demands we face the other side. Not every holder will ride this wave to the end, because volatility cuts both ways and external shocks can wipe out gains in weeks. The real divide isn't between believers and skeptics anymore. It's between those who treat this as a calculated bet on infrastructure adoption and those chasing pure emotion. And right now, the data is tipping in favor of the patient ones. But the biggest question still remains unanswered. What does the actual timeline look like? And what strategic moves separate the ones who make life-changing money from the ones who watch it happen to someone else? The road ahead isn't some distant fantasy. It's a series of very specific windows that are already opening in front of us. Analysts tracking Ripple's progress point to the next 12 to 24 months as the critical ignition period. Regulatory clarity is locked in, major corridors are live, and institutional infrastructure is being wired directly into the system. If even a fraction of the projected flow materializes, the price pressure could compound faster than most models predict. We're looking at realistic scenarios that range from $20 to $50 in a strong adoption cycle all the way toward the triple-digit territory if the 10 trillion vision starts converting into actual daily volume. But timelines have a way of testing patience. Some expect the next major leg up before the end of this year, while others see 2027 as the year the world finally notices what's been built in plain sight. The strategic difference is clear. Holders who treat this as a utility asset, keeping core positions, adding on real dips tied to adoption news, and avoiding emotional trading, position themselves very differently from those chasing every rumor. Critics will still throw every objection they can find. They'll talk about endless delays, better alternatives already in the market, and the risk that government simply shut the whole experiment down. Each of those concerns carries weight and deserves respect. Yet the infrastructure keeps expanding, the burns keep happening, and the real-world usage numbers continue their quiet climb. The final variable is you. Whether you hold 10 coins or 10,000, the decisions you make in this window will separate those who participated in the shift from those who only read about it later, and that brings everything full circle. Shall I write the conclusion? Fast-as conclusion. And here we stand at the edge of something much larger than one coin's price. The CEO's projection isn't a guarantee, but it is a spotlight on a future that Ripple has spent years quietly engineering. Whether the $10 trillion vision fully materializes or lands somewhere short of that mark, the infrastructure is already live, the momentum is building, and the window is narrowing for those still on the sidelines. This isn't about blind hope. It's about recognizing a fundamental change in how the world will move money and deciding where you stand before the next chapter writes itself. The people who act with clear eyes and steady hands are the ones who tend to look back on moments like this with quiet satisfaction instead of regret. If you want to stay ahead of every major update, every new partnership, and every shift that actually moves the price, then make sure you're part of this channel. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next update could be the one that separates those who saw it coming from those who wish they had. You've been given the map. Now, the road is yours. Thank you for staying with me through every layer of this story. I'll see you in the next one, where we go even deeper. For Fast.